Hello, hello. Thanks for coming along. Okay, well, everyone's time is precious, so I will get cracking, and I'm sure more people will be appearing as we go. So, yes, hello. My name's Simon Jones. I work here at One Further, and I'm also one of the people behind Coach, our online platform for online courses all about anything useful to do with digital and marketing for arts and cultural organizations. And we do these live sessions every month, which normally are for subscribers to Coach All Access, but today it's open and free for everyone, which is lovely. So good to see so many of you showing up. And today we're going to just cover a few updates for Coach. And then the main thing, the main event is looking closely at Google Ad Grants and how they work. Some of you may already have an ad grant, or maybe you have one, but it's not being used very much, or you're thinking that you really should have one. But what we're hoping to do today is provide a nice introduction about the kind of fundamentals of how they work and why it is a good idea to have one working hard for you. And we'll have questions at the end. I've got a few questions that have been sent in already, but if you have any, then there is a little Q&A section. If you look down at the Zoom bar at the bottom, there's a Q&A box there you can stick questions into, or just stick stuff in the chat. So quick updates on Coach. The main thing is, and relevant to the live session right now, is that this morning we just launched a brand new course called How to Run a Successful Google Ad Grant. So if you find what I talk about today useful and you want to know more and get some really good step-by-step and how-tos, video tutorials, that kind of thing, then this new course is a really, really good way to go. If you are a Coach All Access subscriber already, then all you have to do is log in to your account, go up to all courses, and you'll find it in there, all ready to go. And it covers everything you might want to know in a real nuts and bolts, like step-by-step from the very beginning kind of thing. You'll find out how to set up your campaigns, how to structure the account, all the little quirks and weird things you have to know about ad grants in order to stick within Google's policies and compliance stuff, and lots more besides. But anyway, enough about that, because today we want to talk about ad grants in this session. So how to use a Google ad grant. And yeah, do stick questions in to the Q&A as we go along if anything comes to mind. So this is going to be kind of a whistle-stop tour of what an ad grant is, the unique challenges of running it for kind of arts and cultural organizations, and some of the stuff that we've observed having managed a lot of ad grant accounts over the years. So in terms of what it is and what to expect from an ad grant, just for anyone who's not familiar with them, it is essentially $10,000 every month that goes out to non-profit organizations that are eligible. So if you're eligible, Google gives you $10,000 to spend on Google search ads. It's not really a catch. It's a strangely altruistic thing for Google to be doing. We've been doing it for about 20 years, I think. And yeah, you can use it to help boost your profile online, make sure that if people are searching for the kind of stuff that you're doing, that your ads appear. And it's $10,000 that doesn't have to come out of your actual marketing budget, which, for most organizations, those budgets are never as big as you want them to be. So this is a really, really lovely bonus thing to have. So just to emphasize, it is on Google search ads. So you can't use this grant on, say, Google display ads or video to put stuff up on YouTube. This is very specifically search ads. So that's when, if you go to google.com and search for something, you'll get all the organic results, but up the top, you'll see quite often a couple of ads that have been paid for answering your question as well. So it's those things. That's what the Google Ad Grant is all about. And we've worked with a lot of clients over the years to help them set up ad grants and manage it month to month. And over time, we've kind of observed that there's three buckets that you can put arts organizations, cultural organizations into when it comes to ad grants. And an ad grant is not the same for every organization. Like, it will depend a lot on your profile and the specifics of what you do. So for example, we have what we call big spenders, we have monthly reliables, and we have the super niche. And I'll explain what these are, but you'll probably pretty immediately know where you and your organization sits in these three. So on the big spenders front, we have national and international museums and galleries. And This is the kind of organization where you everyone knows about it. People on the other side of the world know about it, and people are searching from China or from San Francisco to come to a museum in England, for example. The ones that everyone knows about, and in this case, with these, uh, the use of the ad grant is kind of like a fire hose. It will just spend that ad grant really easily without even thinking about it. And the challenge really in terms of the ad grant is figuring out where to actually put that spend. Like where do you want uh, that ad grant to go? Because it's just going to go all over the place, and you have to figure that out. It's a good problem to have, but that's what that is. And then we have the monthly reliables. So these are kind of heritage venues, touring theatres, concert halls, that kind of thing. The middling level organizations that can really get a lot out of ad grants. So with a good setup and monthly maintenance, it can really become an integral part of your overall marketing and communications strategy. Uh, Very valuable and will like happily in the background be just boosting you in every way possible. And then you've got the super niche. So these are the smaller art galleries, the local theatres, local historical museums, that kind of thing. This is where it can be more of a challenge. So there's generally lower search volume for something that's very, very niche. And you might have a very strong, independent, artistic programming department that programs incredible stuff, but not necessarily the kind of thing that people are going to be actually searching for. So you have to figure out how can you apply search ads to that. So those are the kind of the three brackets that we tend to see. So in terms of how search ads work, I imagine most of us are familiar with things like Facebook and Instagram ads and Google Display, that kind of thing. Search ads work slightly differently to that. So it starts off with search terms. So this is what people are searching for on Google. So they go to Google and they type in a question, or they're searching for something quite specific, trying to find answers to whatever that may be. And what you want is for those search terms to match keywords. So these are keywords that you choose, that you put into your campaigns. And ideally, what people are searching for on Google over here matches up with your keywords over there. And if you do match, then you go into an auction and you're competing with other advertisers. And if you win that auction, then your ad gets shown to the person on the other end. And this isn't just about budget. So it's not just like who throws the most money at the auction. Because it's search ads, Google also wants the ads to still be relevant, to still be useful in terms of what they're providing. And that's the key difference there. So the thing is that you have your budget and you have your auction combining together. And if you win that, then that's when your ad gets shown. So it's a mixture of those two things. That's really the trick when it comes to search ads. So your ad gets shown, and then ideally what you want is for someone to click on the ad. So they see the ad and they go, yes, that is what I want. I might not have realized that's what I wanted, but I'm going to click on it. And they end up on your website on your chosen landing page. That doesn't have to be your homepage. That can be wherever you send them on your website. And from there, you want them to take a meaningful action of some sort. So a conversion. That could mean all sorts of things. The most obvious one being that they buy a ticket to come to the show or the event, the exhibition, whatever it may be. And then that data creates a kind of feedback loop. So if ads end up with people going to landing pages, they do something there, that conversion is registered and feeds back so that Google knows, that keyword match that we did to that search term was a good one. That person liked it. It seemed relevant. So that's a kind of constant feedback loop that, if it goes well, increases the chances of your ads being shown. So that's kind of the general shape of it. So display ads, like we were saying earlier, they're relatively speaking quite easy. So you basically pay your money and you target specific cohorts of people or interests. And if you're paying enough money, your ads get shown on Facebook or Google or wherever. That's the way around that works. With search ads, it's a bit trickier because you've got your budget, but you also have to be relevant. So it doesn't matter how much budget you've got if your ads and your keywords and your landing pages aren't doing the right things. And that's where, with ad grants, you have to really kind of massage how you're setting it up to make sure it's actually working. Basically, if nobody's searching for your keywords, then uh, it's not going to work. So it comes down to search volume, and the harsh question is, does anybody care about what you're doing enough to be searching for it, essentially? And so that is what you've got to figure out. And to think about how search ads are used primarily. So what are they good for? And it's not always a great match for the kind of stuff that we do. So it works really well for really broad appeal charity donations. If someone's searching for how can I donate to a children's charity, or if there's an international crisis and they're just trying to figure out where can I donate to this thing, that works really well. People researching holidays and places to go, restaurants, local services, like if someone's trying to find a plumber and they're running Google search ads, they're going to have a better chance of people finding them. Mainstream entertainment. So if you're talking like the really massive popular culture stuff, like if a new Marvel film's coming out, people are searching for that for sure. Everyone's heard of it. Selling just products like electronics, household equipment, all that kind of thing. Basically selling stuff. Like that is what those are the clients Google wants, because that's where the money is. These big shops, retailers, e-commerce places, they're selling a lot, they're spending a lot on ads, and that's Google's preferred person to work with. Search ads are a trickier fit for other things. So, for example, new artists that nobody's heard of. Like if no one's heard of a new artist yet because they're new, then no one's going to be searching for them. Niche or avant-garde events. If you've got an unusual name for a show, which is maybe like the perfect name from an artistic perspective, but if nobody's searching for it or can't spell it or something like that, then from a search perspective, it's going to be a challenge. Donations to a specific organization. So people might search for big, broad charity themes, but they're not going to be searching for an organization, because if they know your name and your organization already, then they're just going to donate to you. They're not going to be searching. There's no benefit there. Promoting specific shows can be a challenge for the reasons we've mentioned. And basically everything that arts and cultural organizations generally like to do is a bit tricky. But this is also why having an ad grant is great, because it's not your money. So you can experiment and try things without burning through your actual marketing budget. So with all that said, which sounded a little bit negative, like you can do stuff to make it work. So in terms of how you can make search ads work for arts and cultural organizations, the common challenges that we see a lot when we're working with different clients, but everyone is different, so some of these will apply, some may not. Nobody's searching for the name of your exhibition or show. That can often be an issue. Quite often websites are not answering questions. So Google search works really well when someone's asking a question. Where can I go for dinner tonight? Where can I find a plumber? These kind of things, these like essential life things. And a theatre or a museum, that's not what they're for. Your website is maybe not search optimized in terms of organic search, but that also would benefit for search ads as well. And quite often we find that conversion tracking is in a bit of a mess. And ad grants in particular, but any form of digital ads relies on good data. And if you don't have good data coming through, the system has no idea if the ads are working well, if it's reaching the right people, that kind of thing. So that can be kind of a vicious circle of not quite getting anywhere. In terms of the fundamentals then, so to kind of start dealing with some of those challenges, we like to keep it very simple. So in terms of campaigns that can work, we tend to go for things like a brand campaign, a local interest campaign, which is very top of funnel, just finding people who are interested in the kind of thing you do. A what's on campaign, which depending on what is on, can work better or not so good. It depends entirely on what is happening. So you'll see in an ad grant, like the performance will vary seasonally based on the shows that are on, because some are going to be popular or hitting themes that people are searching for, and some won't. Tourism campaigns are people who are looking for things to do in the area, and also a dynamic campaign, which we're not going to get into in massive detail today, but these are where you can point the ads at particular areas of the website, and it will automatically run ads based on what it finds there. So it's less keyword based and more to do with the content on the website, but again, relies on the website having the right kind of content. So in terms of keywords, if you can't always rely on people searching for the exact name of a show or an artist or an exhibition, like what can you do? And a lot of it's thinking outside the box, but it depends on the kind of thing that you're doing. And sometimes you do get lucky or have like a really good programming team that make your job easier. So a shorthand way of thinking about this is to ask yourself, is your artist Paul McCartney? Yes or no? And if the answer is yes, then your job with search ad is going to be much, much easier. So, in this example, like people are always searching for him. He's got 60 years plus of pop history. Like he's touched upon so many different things that people might be searching for, whether it's the Beatles or the other bands he's been in, specific songs. In the case of doing a photography exhibition by him, people might not know he's a photographer as well. But through your search ads, when people are searching for him generally because they're interested in his music or anything else he's done, they're now going to see a search ad and go, oh, he has an exhibition. We should go and see that. Another example would be the coronation last year. So if your website had anything to do with Prince Charles, then King Charles, coronations, that kind of thing. If you're an art gallery that have portraits of monarchs, that kind of thing, all of a sudden you get a boost to search. And if you get your ad grant stuff in place, you can really capitalize on that. So yeah, but people might not necessarily be searching for the exact exhibition you have, but you can come in kind of from the side and get people interested in that way. It's more likely that your artist is not Paul McCartney. So in that case, if no one's searching for the person that you currently have an exhibition for, then what do you do? And it's all about kind of thinking laterally. So if no one's heard of the artist and so doesn't have an interest in them yet, they might still be interested in the art form. So, people might be searching up impressionist painters or portrait photography near me, that kind of thing. So you can come at it from that perspective, even if the exact person that you're dealing with, that you're showcasing, is not yet known in that way. If you've got a comedian coming to your theatre, then maybe no one's heard of them, or they're not going to be searching for them because they're not a massive like Channel 4 name yet, but they might be searching for stand-up comedy. Like, is it what stand-up comedy is on this month? So you can go about it that way. If it's something topical, people might not know the name of the specific pantomime you're putting on at Christmas, but they will be searching for pantomimes to find out what their options are. And if you've got your search ads running, people can find it that way. Also, very kind of seasonally based stuff, timing based. So holidays, half term, parents are always looking for stuff to do with kids. If you've got some events or some pages on the website that deal with that kind of thing, you can very easily target that and do it in a very local way as well, so that people who are actually nearby and likely to come to whatever it is you're doing will then see that popping up at the top of their search results. So it's all about kind of thinking around the edges of it rather than expecting the specific name of the thing that you've programmed to be what people are searching for. In terms of helping out with keywords, there's a few different tools you can use, all sorts, to be honest. But the easiest one is built into Google Ads is the Google Ads Keyword Planner. So here you can type in some ideas you might have for keywords, and it will provide you with a list of alternatives and suggestions. Very useful. If you go to Google itself, you can start typing in a Google search, and it will pop out suggestions for what other people have been searching for. That's a really good source for inspiration for kind of keywords you should include. Similarly, after you've done a search, you then get people also search for and similar ideas and what have you popping up here. So you can kind of go down little rabbit holes and be like, oh, I hadn't thought of that particular keyword. That's a good idea. So once you've got all that in place, the next key thing, and it's really easy to overlook this, is the landing page. So let's say you've got the most perfect keywords, your ad is brilliant, everything's up and running and working really well. If your landing page isn't working, then that's going to be a problem. If people land on it and get confused or don't know what's going on, or they don't know how to buy a ticket or what to do next, then all of the work you put into the ads is going to be for nothing. So to think about your website, does it work for search ads? And the assumption often, I think, is that people arrive on a website, they go to the homepage, and then they go to what's on maybe, and then they choose an event. They've gathered all the contextual information they might need, and they buy a ticket, and it's all very neat and tidy. With a search ad, that's not the case, because you're probably going to send people straight to a very specific landing page rather than going to the homepage, because you want them to immediately be in the right place. So in that regard, does that page do the job? Does it contain the right information, so that if someone who's never been to your venue before arrives on that page, are they going to understand what's happening or just be monumentally confused about where they've ended up. And it's easy to forget the obvious stuff. So does your website say where the venue is? Like, is it really obvious on the events pages, on the about pages, like where you're based? Do you actually mention the town? And I think because it's easy to assume that people visiting the website already know about you, you sometimes forget that kind of core information. Do you actually mention the name of your organization? Like, this is something we see where, other than on the homepage, maybe the name of the organization is not actually mentioned at any point, which for someone arriving from an ad, they're then like, I don't understand what I'm looking at here. And are there useful links to other key pages? So what you really don't want is a dead end page where people click an ad, end up on a page, and then are not sure what to do or where to go next, or maybe where they landed is not exactly what they wanted. But if you provide them with some good links, then they might go off somewhere else and then actually find something that is exactly what they wanted. So these are all fairly easy things to do, but which are easily overlooked. In terms of improving landing pages, so you can think about things like, does it make sense as a point of entry? Because an events listing quite often has a very specific job to do, which doesn't always make it a great landing page, because you don't want to overload it with tons and tons of information. So it's about finding that balance. And thinking about, in terms of the keywords, how do you get those keywords into the copy in a way that feels natural and doesn't feel like you've just rammed loads of keywords into the copy? Because you want the search terms that have been searched for and the keywords that they match to match the copy in the ad, and then some of that to also be on the landing page, because that's how Google can then go, oh yeah, this is all connected. It all makes perfect sense. So finding ways to do that in your copy that doesn't sound like it's been written by a robot, or sounds a bit strange, is quite a trick. One way you could do this is to add an FAQ at the bottom of the page. So this is where you can answer some direct questions, and Google will like that, but it won't necessarily like overload the top half of the page where you want to be doing a very specific job. The more extreme way to go is to actually create brand new pages as your landing pages. So rather than trying to shoehorn everything into, say, an events page, you actually think, right, we want to put a campaign together for this particular thing, but we're going to make a new landing page that is more kind of SEO optimized, is answering the questions. Maybe it's a more general article that is talking about things to do with the kids in the local area during half term. And in the course of that post, you obviously mention the stuff that you're doing, but it could also be a useful thing pointing off to other places and other venues that people could go to. And then Google's going to really like that, both organically and in terms of the search ad. So that can be a good one. But obviously it requires resources of actually putting those pages together in the first place. You probably can't do that for every single thing that you're doing, but if it's a really high profile event that you want to do well, that could be a good option. What this all adds up to is what's called a quality score. So as your quality score improves, then it will improve the overall performance of the campaigns. As the campaigns improve, then it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. But you need all of those separate pieces, the keywords, the ad, and the landing page to be working in unison, so that it all connects in a way that makes sense. And that's not always easy, and it can take a while. And that's why, although you're getting $10,000 every month, you might not spend all of that straight away. It might take a while. It could take 6 months, depending on where you are. Particularly if you're in that kind of super niche category, it can be a slow build up to where you want to be. And Google ad grants, search ads generally, but particularly ad grants, it's an iterative thing. So you start off and you throw lots of stuff at the wall, and you find out what sticks, and then you tweak and improve it over time, and you'll see your spend and your impressions hopefully ticking up month by month as you optimize and improve the account. So to recap, ad grants can be tricky, but they're obviously very, very worthwhile. You probably won't immediately spend the full $10,000 unless you're one of those like big spender, massive international type museums or galleries. You need to be honest about the search potential of your subject and set expectations accordingly. And if the stuff you're doing is not an obvious fit for search, start thinking about ways that you can kind of get around the edges and come at it from a different angle, perhaps. Think outside of the box, in other words. And make sure you optimize your landing pages and create new ones if needed, and make sure that kind of circular flow that Google requires is all up and running and working well. And the main thing is be patient because it can take a while. Sometimes the things you think are going to work brilliantly just don't really take off. Other times you'll be surprised by something happening that gives you a massive boost. We've seen things where the Google Doodles at the top of Google, where they have a little animated picture or something. Sometimes those can drive an enormous amount of traffic for like a week because the artist perhaps that they're showcasing, you just happen to have some of their paintings in your gallery. And if you've got your ad grant set up nicely, then you'll capitalize on that kind of stuff where otherwise you might have missed out. So yeah, and this is kind of an introduction to how they work and how they slot together. But if you want to know more and if you want to get your ad grant either set up for the first time or maybe running better than it currently is, then yeah, the new course we just put out, How to Run a Successful Ad Grant, is out now and available for you. It's very focused. It's obviously aimed at arts and cultural organizations. So there's nothing in there that's going to be wasting your time or confusing you. It's taken us a while to get this course out because Google are continually tinkering with their UI. So every time we thought it was ready, Google would just completely change everything. But yeah, it's all up to date. And we keep all of our courses as up to date as possible as we go along. So if Google or Meta or anyone else changes something their end, we'll go in and update the courses accordingly. In terms of how to do it, you just have to go to coach.onefurther.com, and then you can either buy the course on its own for £150 plus VAT, or the much better option from a value perspective is if you get a Coach All Access subscription, which is 250 plus VAT, you get all of our courses and these live sessions that we do every month. So you get live sessions, 7 online courses, so it adds up to like a grand's worth of courses straight away, and we're adding more stuff all the time, like the AdGrant one that we just added. So yeah, oh yeah, and there's a 10+ hour archive of Chris Unit webinars, and everyone likes a Chris Unit webinar. So yeah, but enough of selling that. If you need more help with any of this stuff, if you don't want to DIY it, then you can of course get in touch with us. We do a lot of this kind of stuff. So questions. I can see some questions have already appeared, in fact, so let's have a look. And yeah, do stick stuff in the Q&A box as you go. So let's see. So this one, do you know of any organizations that run this themselves? Does it have to be run by an agency, and what are the pros and cons of both? So we know that both. We run a lot of ad grants for people. We also know of organizations that do it themselves to varying degrees. We sometimes do something we call a jumpstart, where we come in for 3 months, get everything set up and sorted, and then do a bit of training and hand it back, and then the organization takes it from there. So it depends a lot on the skills you have in your team, obviously, and also the time you have, because although Google's given you $10,000, it's not giving you like magic free time. So it's mostly, do you have the time to run it yourself? And if not, sometimes it's nice to have it as a thing you can tick off and have an agency just sort it for you. So it depends on your situation, but you certainly can do it yourself. There's no reason that you can't do that. So it might be worth giving that a try. And then if that proves difficult for whatever reason, then you can look at going to an agency for a bit of assistance. Okay, so should Google search ads be incorporated into the content design process, ideally? That's a really good question. I mean, ideally, I suppose, but the thing about search ads is that they kind of operate in a similar space to just search generally. So absolutely, when you're thinking about your website and the content that's on it, it's very important to think about how that works from a search perspective. A lot of that is just best practice. So, make sure you put headings, break up your text with headings, have good images. If it makes sense to have like bulleted sections, do that. Make sure there's lots of internal linking going from one page to another. Google loves all of that kind of stuff. So some of it is just best practice like that. Some of it's making sure you've got sensible keywords within the copy. If you do all those kind of things, then that's going to benefit your SEO, your organic search stuff, but it's also going to help when it comes to setting up search ads, whether it's ad grant or paid. So yeah, I mean, the more you can think about that stuff, the better. Like you don't want to have everything going down that direction, because then you can end up with one of those websites that just feels like it's been kind of cynically designed from an SEO perspective. But there's a mid ground that you can find for sure. Okay, so question here. What if this is all you're doing, i.e. you're not running display ads? I mean, that's completely fine. Whether that's you've chosen not to run display ads or you don't have the budget to run it, that's okay. Like the Google Ad Grant account exists as its own thing. So whatever you're doing in that doesn't affect any other ads that you may or may not be running. So yeah, you don't have to be running other stuff in order to take advantage of the ad grants. Um, if you're running multiple things, some paid, some for an ad grant, then that's great as well. You do have to be careful with that, not to accidentally compete with yourself. So if you have a paid account and you're running paid search ads, just make sure you're not bidding on the same keywords in your paid account and your ad grant. We've seen this a couple of times where Google has no idea that your paid account and your ad grant account belong to the same organization. So as far as Google's concerned, these are competing accounts. And what that means is you're competing with each other, which raises the cost per click, and your costs go up because you've basically increased demand for those keywords. So not only are you kind of impacting on performance, but also making it more expensive for yourself, which is obviously not what we want to do. So watch out for that. Okay, let's see. So Jenny says, I'm unclear where to put my conversion tracking on our website. We're sending people to general what's on listings pages. Should the conversion tracker be on this what's on page or on every individual event, which feels unwieldy as we're continuously adding new events? Right. So that's a big question, which we don't have time to go into full detail here, but the way we like to do it is we use something called Google Tag Manager. And that means that rather than having to go into every individual page on your website and editing them, every new event you add, you have to go into the code and add tracking stuff. You don't want to be doing that. Instead, with Google Tag Manager, you put a simple piece of code at the top of every single page on the website. So just as a default thing. And that then lets Google Tag Manager in the background add in whatever tags you want. So that can be analytics tags, it can be conversion tags from Google Ads or a meta pixel, that kind of stuff. And then you, rather than tinkering with the website code itself or having to constantly go back to your web developers, which can be expensive, you just go into your Google Tag Manager account and you can tweak it there directly. Whether you're doing that yourself or with an agency, it's a much quicker and easier way to go about it. And then you have more control over when and how things are appearing. But yeah, that's kind of a big question. We do have a Google Tag Manager course on Coach, actually. And we do a lot of that stuff. So if you want to know more, then do drop us a line afterwards. Okay, there's a lot of questions coming in here. Let's see. So how much would you recommend we're led by the Google prompts for the adverts? Each time I respond to the prompts, I just get sent more. So I'm not sure exactly which prompts you mean, but there are various like recommendations that you get in a Google Ads account, including ad grants. We generally recommend to take them one by one and with a pinch of salt. So, Google obviously wants you to spend more money. Yeah, even in the case of the ad grant, it just wants you to do more. And at the moment, it's also really heavily going in on AI and automation. Now, a lot of automation is really good in Meta and Google. Like a lot of that stuff is great and surprisingly good, but some of the AI stuff is not so good. It's feels very much like it's in kind of beta testing period. So generally, as a rule of thumb, if you don't know what a recommendation that Google's telling you means, maybe don't do it or read up on it or try and get some answers from somewhere. Because sometimes the stuff they're recommending, particularly for ad grants, just doesn't make sense, or in the context of an arts organization, is nonsense. So yeah, you do have to kind of read between the lines and try and figure out whether it makes sense for you in particular. Okay, so a question here about how location specific is it worth going with audiences? I've made, let's see, the ad that I've made is specific to 2 counties, it's not getting any clicks at all. I'm not sure if it's location or more general issue. So there is a rule with ad grants specifically, not with paid accounts, but with Google Ad grants, they do require that all campaigns are location specific. You're allowed to have one that isn't, that can be more wider. But otherwise, all your campaigns have to be location specific. Now, what that means is a bit fluffy, because obviously a big London museum is in London, but actually their reach and their impact is likely to be nationwide or even international. Whereas a small local theatre is going to be much more regional based. So that's the first consideration. In terms of how specific you should be, generally, the more local you get, if you're a venue based organization, then the wider you go, the less likely you are that people are going to do something. Like how you'll know your audience is better than we do. How likely are people to drive in from an hour away or 2 hours away? What are the transport connections like, that kind of thing? So you can use that as a starting point. And if you go too wide, then your ads are going to start being seen by people who are so far away they're very unlikely to actually come and visit your venue or see your events. So sometimes it can be like counterintuitive in that the smaller your location targeting, the more successful the campaign can be because actually it's being seen by the right people, even if it's fewer people. But that's not always the case. It's one of those things where you just have to try different things. But we have seen cases where we started off quite wide geographically and then narrowed it down, and everything has worked a lot better. But we've also seen it the other way around, where actually you're missing out on opportunities and can go a bit wider. So I know I sort of hedged my bets on that answer a little bit, but hopefully that was useful. Let's see. So, question here: what should you be aiming for this to be working? Think about the time it would take. We've been quoted £8,000 to run this for us, which almost wipes out the value of the grant. So, planning to do it ourselves. Right. Very good question. And yes, ideally, I mean, for a start, if you are thinking of working with an agency, what you really want to get to is a position where the ad grant is working efficiently enough and bringing in enough conversions and conversion value that it's easily covering the cost of that agency. So, it should pay for itself, basically. There's sometimes a bit more of an upfront cost to the setup, but in terms of month to month, that's the equation you want to get to eventually. If you still just can't afford an agency, then I think an ad grant is set up well and structured carefully and nice and tidy. You don't want gone are the days where you have like 100 campaigns and they've each got 50 ad groups and then a million keywords and it's all just crazy. Being focused and structured is what Google likes, and it's also easier from our point of view to manage these things. So if you are doing it in-house, I think once it's set up and running, if you can go and do like one morning a month, so 3 to 4 hours a month, just in the middle of the month, so right on this Wednesday morning, I'm going to go and do the ad grant stuff, and you pop in, you check the keywords, you check landing pages, see what's going on there, see any recommendations, any policy issues. That should be enough. And particularly if you've designed the ad grant with kind of evergreen campaigns, so it's not, you don't want to be running campaigns where each campaign is an individual show that's starting and stopping, like you might do with a meta campaign or the display campaign. With an ad grant, the opportunity there is to set your stuff up and just leave it running, and then your actual involvement from that point on is fairly minimal. It's like making little tweaks here and there, so it doesn't have to eat up your time. Like if that's the bare minimum you can do. If you can do more, if you've got more time, then that's great. If you can afford to bring an agency in to really like go to town on it and fine tune it, then you'll get even better results. But if that's not an option, then you can get an ad grant to work for you on a kind of very minimum time budget. So yeah, I hope that helps. Now I've had a few other questions sent in ahead of time, so I'm just going to check those out. So I think we literally just covered that, so I don't need to talk about that. So yeah, if you find you're not spending $10,000 every month, and at the start you probably won't be, like unless you're a massive, very well-known household name type place. The first thing to think is that spending $10,000, like the whole ad grant budget, that's not the main purpose of having an ad. So the main purpose is to get people to your website and ideally take some sort of meaningful action. So joining the newsletter, buying a ticket, that kind of thing. That's what you actually want to be doing. If If you're doing that really successfully, but you're only spending 5K, then that's a success. So don't stress too much about it. Now, that said, you do obviously actually want to spend the whole 10K as well. But it's very easy to spend the 10K in ways that are not very useful. So, you can get loads of ads seen, you get people clicking, but it's the wrong people, and then you don't sell any tickets. So what's the point? Like, yay, you've spent 10K, but it's not actually doing anything useful. So focus on getting good results first. And then if you've still got leftover budget at the end of that, and you're like, oh, well, there's 4K here that's not being used, that's when you can think about how to, like, what changes can you make to use the rest of it. So what you want to do first is just things like improve your landing pages, improve your keywords, make sure your conversion tracking is actually working properly. So make sure you're doing everything right to start with, because that might just actually fix things and move it on. If you've still got headroom in the budget, then that's when you can set up maybe a tourism campaign that does target like nationwide or something, and is a slightly cheekier, kind of very broad appeal kind of thing. You don't want that to be the first thing you do, because it might just eat up all your budget in a not useful way. But if you have leftover budget, doing something like that can be a good way to go. What are the most common mistakes you see people making? So one mistake is to use your brand name in every campaign. So, whatever the name of your organization is, putting that in every single campaign, because, people are going to be searching for it. By all means, have a brand campaign, but make sure it's kind of firewalled off. It's got its own distinct budget, because the problem with brand campaigns is that if someone's searching for the name of your organization, they already know about you. Like, they're going to get to your website anyway. They're probably just typing it in order to find the website. So paying to show an ad to that person doesn't make any sense. Like, definitely be careful if you're doing that kind of thing in a paid account, because you'll see like amazing conversion rates and click-through rates and that kind of stuff. But it's because those people already knew you. They were already on their way to you. You just spent some money to get them to do the thing they were already going to do. So be careful of that, even if it's grant money. The other mistake is expecting like really niche stuff to do really well and then being disappointed when it doesn't. That's just the nature of search ads. Watch out for rubbish landing pages, because if you've done everything else really well, but you're like, oh, it's not working and we're getting a low quality score, what's going on? It's probably the landing pages. Make sure your conversions are actually working properly. And like I said earlier, make sure you're not accidentally competing with yourself, because that's easily done and not easy to spot necessarily. So watch out for that. Right. I think that's all the questions that we had sent in. So I think we're done. Thank you very much for coming along. Really appreciate everyone taking time out to come and say hello. And yeah, if you want to know more about ad grants, then either get in touch with us or go check out the course over on Coach. We basically like to make it as easy as possible to find this information. So, if you want an agency to do the work for you, then that's what we're here for, either with the Jumpstart 3-month thing or just ongoing. If that's not for you, for whatever reason, then you do some training, or there's the new Coach course, which is a very affordable, off the shelf, do it at your own pace option. So yeah, whatever you find handy, you know where we are. And yeah, if you've got questions about Jumpstart costs and that kind of thing, then the best thing to do is email us at team@onefurther.com, and then we can ping over a quote and let you know how it works in more detail. Yeah, thank you very much. And I'll let you go and have your lunch now. There will be a recording of this up on the Coach website as well. So if you want to refer back to anything later on, that will be available probably tomorrow at some. Okay. Thank you very much, and hopefully see you next time.